and welcome to another inspiring episode of BB Uncovered with me, Tosin or Jebisi, right here on the Movement Studio. On today's episode, I sit with a visionary media and communications entrepreneur. She is the MD CEO of 83 Resources, the movement agency, Mrs. Tosin Adefeko. Welcome, Ma. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you, Tosin. I'm excited to be here.
Right.
And I think you're slightly biased with your whole visionary. That's some
I'm
bias
sure that's
going
who
on.
you are. You are what you are.
That is some bias going on here. So disclose the bias.
All right. Okay, so we are uncovering the life of Bibi, Dr. Biodun Shobanjo. So we'll just dive straight into the conversation. First off is what would you say, or where would you say you met him, or perhaps you can just share your first encounter with him. How did you meet him?
Okay. First, let me just say, of course, I'm excited to be here. And it's interesting that I get to sit on two sides of the production. So it's my pleasure to also tell my own BB story. Let's talk about the beginning. I think before I encountered him, I had encountered him. And I will tell you what I mean by that. You know, there's a sense in which you'll be following someone's life without the person knowing. So it was, I don't know.
Were you stalking him?
Not stalking physically, but stalking on the web and everywhere he existed.
Oh, wow.
So it was a case of, okay, let me tell you, I had when I was, of course, in my 20s, I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to work in advertising. My first project in school was on advertising. So to a very large extent, I was very interested in that field. Okay. But life happened to me in my 20s, and one of the first few jobs I got was in banking. And then I ended up working in the banks for almost a decade. I've told that story so many times, and that story is not for today. Yeah. But what then happened was, when I was ready to sort of live that life that was quite interesting, it was a learning phase of my life, but I was ready to leave it to go into the fulfilling phase of my life. When I was ready for that, I started to interrogate the industry I wanted to work in, which was, bear in mind, my original, interest and passion as a student of languages and literature with someone that had done their project in advertising. That was the original career I wanted to go into, but I just didn't follow up with it, right? So when I started to interrogate the industry, his name kept popping up everywhere you go. He was the guy with the bow tie. He was doing a production then, and I forget the name now, but we all know it now, the Trump version of You're Fired. You know? So when I say stalking, I'm talking about real life stalking. So he's speaking somewhere, he's reading anything, I'm reading about him. And then it so happened, I ditched my banking job and told myself, you know what, let me just go and study marketing. Maybe if I studied marketing, I would find a place in that industry. So I went to school. I saved up whatever money I could save at the time. My husband also contributed, sold my car, just went away. I went to England, Jerry, went to study marketing, right? Now, on one of my several trips, going back and forth as a student, behold, I mean, this story I've told you now, Tosin, lo and behold, just as we were about to board a flight, I just saw him. It was as if I saw a god.
Wow.
He was standing right there, and I'm like, that is that guy. That is the guy. He's going to laugh that I'm telling this here, because after I met him, I didn't even tell him the story until many years after. He almost fell off his chair.
Wow.
So what happened was, you know how you just stimulate yourself and give yourself that courage? That's our elevator pitch we always talk about.
Yes.
Me too. I said, let me do elevator pitch. And I then went. I was like, hello, sir. That's meek way that people come to you. And now that I'm older, I'm wiser. Hello, sir. I'm a student of marketing. I'd like you to be my mentor. Can you please give me your number? Please, if you're watching this, don't do it. Because, do you know what happened?
Yeah.
He was all nice and gracious and everything. Give me his card. And then it was as if I won the lottery. Yeah. And then I'm punching the numbers. When I got to my apartment in London, punching, the numbers never went through. So I think Dr. Show probably had a fake card and a real card. Dr. Show confessed because
he actually did.
It was I'm just saying. It was the funniest thing ever because I was never able to get through to him.
My goodness.
And then I just felt like, oh, that now I know better. I get it. Because I'm trying to imagine the sheer number of people that walk up to you to say, can you be my mentor? That's what I'm saying, don't do it. It just doesn't work. Anyway, so as I was saying, that was my first ever encounter with him. And I went back to continue my studies, excelled in my master's, and then came home, started looking for a job. I basically went through, different shenanigans. It was all in a bid to sort of fulfill my own personal career dreams and all of that. But it was good that I did a bit of TV, I did a bit of print. It was good that I kept going because at some point I then got the opportunity to interview with one of the companies in the group. First, it was the advertising company, and I didn't have the experience, right? So those ones didn't take me. It didn't matter. I kept searching until I got the opportunity to actually interview with another of the companies within the group, which was then the PR company. Do you see how long it took me? Because what I'm describing to the day I got to meet Dr. Show was quite a number of years, right? But guess what? I went through the interview stages. And of course, anyone that has worked in the group knows that you have to meet with chairman. So the day I was billed to meet with chairman, I don't know, I can't remember now because many years ago, right? But I must have, the stalking I was doing before, I must have done it on another level. Because this time I'm reading every and anything. What does he want to hear? How does he speak? What does he appreciate? But guess what? I didn't even need all of that by the time I met him. I just walked into a room. He was sitting right there, all nice and gracious, asked me a couple of questions. Now, two of us walked into that interview room on that day. Only one of us got employed. And that was me. And I'll never forget, the people that even took me to him said to me, hey, we're not the ones that got you this interview. The guy was ready to say, for some other reasons that, but we're not taking you, but that you proved yourself. I think what I would say was the main reason, which I found out many years later, by the way, was just me telling my story from the position of genuineness. I literally said to him, see, all I need is an opportunity. This has been a lifelong dream to work in communications. I've done banking. It is not a thing I like. I'm not even that financial. But I just want to, I just need an opportunity. You know how you tell someone your story from a position of passion? And I guess he saw it. And here we are today, many years after. And I don't know if you want me to keep talking or if I should leave you to ask your follow-up questions. But that's how that was my first, encounter with him. And then I started working in a group. I wasn't even looking up at him, I promise you. Because I got the opportunity of a lifetime, I just, when you say, bow your head, I literally just stayed in my unit, continued to do my work until the day he took notice of me himself. Because he then needed some assistance on his pet projects, right? He had all this volunteer work that he was doing, and the PR arm, the nature of our work is to support on events, to support on projects of the nature in which he wanted assistance on. So I was asked to go see him, and that's how my personal one-on-one interaction started with him. Now, do you remember what I said about the day we first met?
Yeah.
There's a sense in which when you have value alignment, when people align in terms of what they believe in and the kind of people that they are, there will be a connection. I will go into the connection later.
I mean, from your first encounter, the next time you'll be meeting him, did he remember you?
So there was no way he was remembering me because first and foremost, like I said, I was a student, right? So finished my studies, came back to work. I don't know if I think I had my second baby even before, I met him again. Don't forget, first and foremost, changing in sizes, that's one. Secondly, this is a man that is like the biggest thing after fried fish in the industry. Is it me, tiny me, he's remembering? And don't forget, I said I didn't remind him of the encounter. I just got the job, was very appreciative, and I went to work. I never did. It was many years after we had worked on several projects, and I had known that he appreciated my work and appreciated the value I brought to the table. One of the days we were sitting casually in his office, I then told him, but sir, there was a time we met. I promise you, he almost fell off his chair that day. He couldn't even remember the encounter. I said, sir, you gave me fake card. He burst out laughing because again, Me, I'm not afraid to tell you my own. Do you understand? So I just told him as it was. He had the greatest laugh, but he didn't remember. No, he didn't. To your question.
So working under his leadership, what are some of his personality or qualities that you admire?
Whew, how do I answer this question? Let me tell you, I think the first thing as humans that we appreciate is people to see us, right? And even now that I'm also a leader, I try to make everyone feel seen and allow everyone to be able to express themselves. I think I must have taken that from him because one of his greatest attributes is first, he used to come visiting our offices because we all had different offices, right? So he used to come visiting our offices. First, when he walks in, this is someone that when he comes, and I'm sure you might have heard one or two other guests say it, that is like, God has come. At least he was our own mini God in those years, right?
Yeah.
So when he comes, everybody's like running helter-skelter all over the place and all of that. But he's a very simple guy. So he just walks in casually. If I remember properly, he would even greet you. I remember he would even give you 2 pecks on the cheek. And I'm like, okay. He was that warm. So the first thing I would say would be his warmth. Because how far with how some of us carry ourselves, like, even if people are running helter-skelter, calm yourself down. Do you understand? After all, we're all human, right? So that is the one thing I would say about him. The second thing I would say is he's extremely attentive. Everything you tell him, he remembers. So I'll never forget how I was having my third baby now, while I was now in the group. And I don't know if he heard I was having a baby or after the baby was born, but whatever the case is, he sent me a note with a token to, congratulate me and all of that. What if I tell you I still have that note? I think I should take it to him and show him.
Of course you
that
should.
that little kid is 10 years old. I kept the
Wow.
note. Dearest Tosin, congratulations on your new baby. That's special, right?
Very.
What else can I remember at this time? I think another thing would be even a more recent example. I went to England for a surgical procedure, and I typically would not tell him because, I don't want him fretting and all of that. But Chairman will literally call you. And for the purposes of this production, I think we call him BB, right?
Yeah.
Chairman will literally call you. He would call me almost every day to check up on me. And I'm like, how weird is that? Like, the fact that you've called on the first day is fine. Maybe second day is all right. But the mere fact that he called every day till he found out that I had left my sick bed and flown to Barcelona. You want my... Gosh, anyway, it was the funniest thing ever. I was like, sir, I'm all right. So he's a father. He's a leader. He's everything. I don't know how else to say it. For the people that know me, they know how I feel about Daddy Show, so I don't know what more to say.
So you've worked with him for many years.
Not that many, actually.
How long?
The privilege of the length of time I spent with him was I was at the group for just almost 5 years. But the privilege of that was that even after I left, and now he's someone that if it were just based on my direct work relationship with him, I'd never have left. But then again, there's always a reason for everything. When you, like the popular saying goes, when you count the dots backwards, you know why. Because if he had left me, I would have been his apprentice for life. But so many other circumstances around, and at some point I'm like, I'm done. Like, I can't deal with this anymore and I have to go. I remember, and I don't want to tell the details of this story because, it's not that much of a good story. But I remember, even when I decided to leave, Bibi was with his wife and, they were sailing on their annual holidays. And he heard that I had resigned. And the next thing I got a call from him. Now, bear in mind, the fact that I'm talking about, the fact that we used to work on projects and all of that, it's work, right? He didn't have to call me. I just put in my resignation and went my way. Again, that is part of the spirit of humanity, the humaneness in him. Like, why is this girl resigning? He wanted to know. Which, of course, then led to other things that spiraled into other things. That was quite interesting. But you asked me how many years I stayed with him. So it's not so much the period that I stayed at the agency. It's now, I feel like I have 2 lives with Baby. Because that period was for me, a period of learning, exposure to best practice, exposure to the best in leadership. That was solid. But my phase of life with BB now, it's a totally different phase of life. Because, like I said, after that one phone call, then he starts to check up on me. We had this project that we were working on with the Awujale.
Yeah.
And everyone that, knew that period. It was a professorial chair in governance that we were doing for the Oba of Ijebu. And he and his board members, and they mentioned for Babayolaja, precious soul. He, they amongst themselves decided that Omo manage project here. And let me speak English. I don't know why you allowed her to go, but she must continue to manage this project wherever she is. That is how the project moved from BB's company, he had his company, to me. And bear in mind, I was just setting up my own agency and I had no briefs. So forget now, it's all looking dandy. That was the lifesaver at the time for the agency. So this is me with a new company, 3-month-old company, going back and forth Ijebu on several projects with them. And it took us 2 to 3 years, just before COVID, before the project died out. And in the process of all that, and of course, other projects that we then started to get from family and friends were the ones patronizing us then, My husband would go everywhere telling people, my wife has an agency. Even his word of mouth alone self now. So to cut the long story short, that was how, we formed another layer to the relationship. Because it was then, in that same period, that his mother died. And there I was just calling him to say, so sorry that the show, heard about your mom, sorry sir, this. And I went off the phone and went my way. He called me I don't know how many days after, and he said, Tosin, oh serious? So you can't ask me, where Bashimashi planning? And the only reason he probably asked that is because most of the corporate events we were doing, were with me and he together. Now, that moment created a shift because I then had to go and manage his own private event, which was the burial of his mother.
Before you continue, because this is absolutely fantastic and mind-blowing, because how would someone you worked for be like your greatest supporter?
Yes.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Yes.
So I would now like to ask, because beyond giving you your first brief when you started your own agency.
He wasn't the first brief, so let's not. I'm just saying his brief was one of the exactly,
first,
but not the very first. Yes.
One of the first, right? What other impacts has he had on your career?
So, before we go into the career story, which is why I wanted to talk about, this whole when I started story, because immediately after we planned his mom's burial and all of that, I then got a next layer of introduction to his family. Because everything we'd ever done, of course, you would see Mrs. Shaw in the office and, you have to be, you had that respectable distance. But because I had to plan his mom's burial, it then brought me closer into his family circle. And I remember being slightly worried because you don't want, to irritate anyone's wife or anything like that. But she was the warmest person. It helped that she found out that, of course, my dad is someone that they all knew and all of that. So that helped. But you see how we then move from me being an employee to, I like to call myself, in fact, I told these children that we're sharing your daddy.
Wow.
So that then helped, to sort of consolidate. And over the years, so bringing me into the conversation of impact, which you're talking about, where do I start from when you talk about my career? Because I already told you about the fact that I had the one life before the second life. So I would discount his presence in my life before I knew him, which was my banking life. And of course, I had different exposures to, different levels of impact in that episode of my life. But when we then talk about my marketing career, is there really me without him? That concept of Ubuntu, the concept of Ubuntu. I am because we are, something like that. I think that's the concept of, the interconnectedness that all of us have as human beings. I'd like to think that I am because he is. Number one, he gave me the first opportunity. That belief from that first conversation that we had. The ability for him to spot that genuine interest,
Zeal.
that zeal, the passion, that ability, second to none. Because if he didn't give me the opportunity, then me, I don't even know where I would have gone. It's only God that knows. So that broke that.
Yeah.
Now, even in terms of working with him on a day-to-day and learning from him, I don't know if you want us to go into the conversation of working with
We'll get
Dr.
there.
Show. We will
Get
get
there.
there. I agree. I'll leave you to it. But in terms of impact, that's overarching impact to my career. Total, full, and complete.
Now let's segue into his leadership, which will
Yes.
take us into
Yes.
working with him, right? How would you say BB's leadership style fostered collaboration, innovation, and general performance within the organization?
Yeah, there are many things I can speak to, but let me just, pick one or two because I think we've said a lot. In the first place, he wouldn't, let's take it from like a brief perspective. When you have a brief or project or whatever working with BB, you can be rest assured that you are doing the work together. And I'm not talking about down to the granular level of the work,
Obviously.
but you can imagine that you see him high up there and you think, he's the big guy, just do the work. And, he's very present in meetings. He's very contributive in meetings. He wants to hear you speak. He gives you the opportunity to show your value, to show that you have something in your brain. He's not the sort that likes the sort of his own voice. I've worked with people that just, cha, 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 cha. I talk a lot, but for crying out loud, when it's time to work, and especially when you have a group and a team that is responsible to collectively deliver results, you want to see what other people can bring to the table, right? That is BB for you. He's such a pragmatic leader. There are times I go into a meeting with him, and by the way, you have to be extremely prepared, but I'll come to that. There are times I go into a meeting with him, maybe it's one of my quiet days. He won't let you off. You can't go off that easy. Like, your quiet days, you want to talk. Tosin, somehow you have not said anything throughout this meeting. It's funny now, right? But in those years, we're like, can you not escape for one day? That is BB. Your voice counts and you have to speak. In terms of, there was another point I was trying to make about, was it the contributions that I was talking about to the meeting? I think I already landed that point. Just giving you opportunities, opportunities to shine. But, okay, I remember the point now. I was talking about preparedness.
Okay.
You better don't be that person. Don't be that person that has a meeting with BB and you go in unprepared. Please don't be late. We had board meetings whereby you're there to dissect figures and show performance, or generally speaking, the client landscape and all of that. And he'll fire you a question. You think because he's not on ground or because he's doing so many board meetings, he has a precise idea of everything that's happening in every of those companies. Wow. And you better be at your top game. So it just trains you to be a holistic human being. When you've worked under such a person, what more do you want? You can't afford to be mediocre. You can't afford to be lackadaisical about your work. Absolutely. You can't afford to be untimely. And I can quickly give you an example of time. Luckily for me, it's not so much of a chore meeting up to his value systems because thankfully, I'm, very similar in some ways. And I will tell you, there was a day I actually found out why we sort of connected. Now, there was this day we had a meeting. I was coming from the island. Of course, the meeting was in his office in Ikeja. And you know how you've sort of planned your schedule, you've checked your routes, you feel like you're good to go, right? Life happens. That was how I think I go to Kingsway Road. And from my place at Oniru, everything was smooth. I was on time. I got to Kingsway Road, and maybe the accident just happened. I had built in over 1 hour into my journey, by the way, but that trailer was not moving anywhere. Wow. And then I knew I was screwed. So I began to text him. Hello, sir, just to let you know that so. He doesn't respond to such idiocy. You can't say he won't respond to you. So I knew I was screwed. But this time, me too, I was like, now. So I walked into his office. I can't remember how many minutes late, but I was late. Right across, there's, a board table in his office. And he's like, with the strictest, he has this strict look when he's angry. Like, Tosin, you are late for this meeting. And I was like, oh, sir, I sent you messages way ahead. I can't remember what else he said, but obviously very, infuriated. At this point, I'd built my defenses and I thought, me too, I'm actually a timekeeper in real life, not even faking it right now. I'm a timekeeper. I was like, sir, with all due respect, in the 7 years or whatever number of years at the time you've known me, have I ever been late for one meeting? Aha! I like your expression because that is BB the considerate. He did like this. You're right. Sit down. And the next question was, do you want some coffee or something? So I smiled. Do you see? Like, he's not a bad person.
So would you
not a
say,
fearful person.
Would you say he's sometimes too hard, too principled, and too tough?
Let me tell you, I understand people like him. And someone that was here described him succinctly. I think it was Steve Babeko. There was something Steve said the day he was here. He was like, with Biodun Shobanjo, you either like him or you hate him. If you go and check the people that like him on that spectrum, it's because they have very, very similar work ethics, work values, similar vision, similar goals. They also want to win. They want to create. They want to be powerful. Those are the ones that would probably end up on the spectrum that like him. Because guess what? I don't know about being too principled, being too anything. To me, there is nothing he is that I do not already practice in my own life. So, and which brings me to the aha moment that I said I had with him. Because again, bear in mind, I warned you that I no longer have a work relationship with him. He's my daddy.
Right.
So, many Sundays, I have the privilege of sitting with him. We're gisting, we're talking about life. And then this one day, he starts to tell me about the story about how he left Grant. And I hope I'm not getting it wrong, Daddy. Don't shoot me. But how he left one of his organizations. Yeah. And the story he told me, I had goosebumps. Because this is now fast forward like 5 or 6 years after I left.
Okay.
And I was after I left his group. And I was wondering, you didn't even know me that well then. So why did you fight for me when I insisted on leaving? Why did you fight for me? The answer to the why he fought for me was in the story he told me about how he left Grant and how he was being oppressed and, some people wanted to cheat him out of his emolument and all of that. Very, very, very eerily similar story. Do you know what I said to him that day? I said, oh my God. I said, chairman. This kind of it was a real aha moment. Because I said to him, I now know why you fought for me. He didn't even dignify my comment with a response. He just smiled and continued his way. That is chairman for you. A man of strong convictions. He is the ultimate truth teller, I would say. He would call a spade, and he will sit on the side of truth. Unless you're able to hoodwink him. And maybe he's just humoring you. He doesn't care for people that just worship you for the sake of worshiping you. Because I remember very much how, while I was in the organization, I found it odd. The whole scampering around. Do your bloody work. I tell my own staff, do your work. Why are you scampering around? Because, someone walked in. I don't know if you know what I mean. Absolutely. So I walk up to him boldly and say, hello, sir. Because that is it, right? I'm no more the student looking for work now. Maybe we're doing the work now. Grown. Exactly. Hello, sir. And engage him in a conversation.
That's good.
And I teach my children to adopt the same, why are you running around? Because you saw, I don't know, in quotes, some people, I guess, maybe you see big man, rich man, that whole worshipping. It's not about that. It's about what do you bring to the table. And I hate to use that sentence the way people have spoiled it online when it comes to women issues and all of it. It's not about that. What are the values? What do you stand for? What are your convictions? What can you fight for if push comes to shove? Yeah. And absolutely chairman is the ultimate epitome of truth, is what I would say.
Now, let's talk about culture.
Yes.
What is that one organizational culture that you fostered whilst,
Well, I think we've said a lot about that. The mere fact that he's an inclusive person. You can't say within the group that, there's some companies you walk into and you just be like, this is an Igbo bank. this is a Yoruba establishment. No. It's a diverse set of people.
Wonderful.
The most important thing to him is what are you contributing to the success of the organization that has brought all of us together? That's the most important thing to him. It's a meritorious system for him. It's speak up, an idea system. I don't know what else to say. I feel like we've said a lot about the culture of leadership and talking about using your power and using your voice and just generally making a presence in the world is what I would say that chairman stands for when it comes to work.
So apart from work, were there ever fun moments with him? Tell us.
Me, I'm too junior to be talking about fun moments, but I can share one.
Okay, you're here for it.
Now, let me tell you, this man, they're strict, they're straight-laced when it comes to meetings. They follow, all the procedures must be followed. Don't forget, the Professor Rocha I spoke about, I had to work with a whole group of much older men on the committees. Sometimes when chairman can't even attend the committee meetings, I represent him from the comms perspective. Okay. So we had people like Ambassador Oguntade. I mentioned Baba Yolaja that is now late, Otomaleko Bello, very distinguished, personalities. They would all look so serious and you would think, oh, these guys, they can't melt anything. Nisha, I caught them once. After the lecture, it was now, I think it was, I can't remember which of the parties at the Ojales residence. But after the serious part of the event, there was the party part of the event. After all the running around, these guys would enjoy themselves. Wow. They dance, they drink, they banter. Because of them, there was a Tosin. This is wine. How can I forget? I can't believe I forgot the name of that wine. There's this particular wine they drink in their clique. It's the funniest thing ever. And because of them, whenever I see that wine, I was like, my Jebu daddies, they're happy-go-lucky. They've worked hard for their money. Yeah. Of course, they have fun. They let their head down. Me, I'm like running around and everything. There was one of the parties where I'd worked for so long the whole day. I think I was on my feet for 12, 15 hours. And I crashed on a chair on the door. All of them just looked at me and were like, they were so amused. They're fun guys. Forget the whole,
Okay.
That show is going to kill me.
Wonderful. So let's quickly segue into his legacy, right? How has BB's legacy served as a catalyst for aspiring advertising and marketing professionals in Nigeria?
Well, I don't know, what else to say, but I think when it comes to being a catalyst, I think BB is the ultimate catalyst. Like, who else could have propelled an entire industry into reckoning like BB? If you go and check almost all CEOs of big advertising companies in Nigeria have all, come through here. I'm not like my own level of CEO. We were still upcoming, but I'm talking about even the big CEOs. All of them have a story to tell. All of them have a BB story to tell. It's what else could the word catalyst represent beyond what you have created in other people? That legacy is so strong because it goes beyond what he's created within the group, which is all the multiple companies and the successes that the companies have, are all known for. It then goes to what other people have created in their own spaces, using their own influence, using what they've learned from him. It's phenomenal, I would say.
Is there ever a one-on-one training?
Yes.
BB?
Well, not at my level. He's too senior to me to have been training me. I learned from him by having the privilege to work with him directly. But in terms of training, I'm sure the older guys will, the guys that are now maybe in their 60s, like them, Udeme. Remember when Udeme spoke? People like that, people like them, Steve, are like, not me. I'm too junior to have undergone any direct training with him. But my training with him was even more spectacular because I was in rooms with him that many people have not had the privilege to be in, which is so many other projects beyond work. And the last project I think, was it the last? I hope, I'm not sure, Because now these days he's slowed down a bit, But if you call him now, he'll still challenge you to any conversation.
Wow.
But I think the last official project was the launch of his book,
Okay.
The Will to Win.
Yeah.
And you saw how we launched that with all the drama. Yes. But yeah, he's a phenomenal guy. So industry-wise, what more do you need me to add beyond the people that he dropped the ladder to also climb up?
Absolutely.
So as we're all going through our leadership journeys, I think we should all think about it. Like who are we grooming? What are we saying to them? How are we building the next generation? To me, it's such a fundamental part of our lives that we cannot afford to ignore it. So yeah, without what he had done, what he's still doing, perhaps, I don't think some of us would even exist.
Absolutely.
Yes.
On that note, can you describe him in 3 words?
Wow. Can anyone describe Bibi in 3 words?
Try.
But I think I can cheat. I'm going to take the liberty to describe him how I want.
Okay.
I think the first thing I would say is he's a very fearless person. But even in his fearlessness, he's a father.
Wow.
So when it comes to work, you would see him, because I have the privilege of having experienced him in the 2 lives. You see him at work, he's so bold, wants to take on the world, very fearless, courage and all of that. But when you see him at home, he's a father. He's sweet, warm, he's playing with his kids. So my first word is fearless father. Combine it how you like.
Okay, absolutely.
Because I'm absolutely trying to cheat right now. The second one will be exceptionally excellent. And this is not to paint him in the mold of someone that has never made mistakes. Trust me, I've listened to him enough to know that he has also made his mistakes in life, in work and all of that. So it's not about that. It's about just when someone is so true, someone is genuine, someone is caring, is humane. What more is anyone looking for in someone? More so someone that is actually way above you in age, in achievements, in accomplishments, everything. So you're just looking for someone that can accommodate. And he's just an excellent person when it comes to that. And I don't know how else to describe my appreciation. My third word is not really a word. It's a play on words.
Okay.
And I would say Bibi is a one-man movement. The reason I say so is, when we started the movement agency, we set it up as an ecosystem that allows us as humans, to connect, to interrelate, to share our stories and share our experiences. So this whole essence of the studio, of having creator events, experiences, was all in furtherance of the goal of creating a movement. Now, people look at the movement like, oh, you want to go and do Aluta. It's nothing to do with that. I say Dr. Sho is a one-man movement because by himself, he created a shift. That is the epitome of the movement that we're also, trying to create here. He represents everything the movement represents to us. So he's a one-man movement. That is my third.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that. So on a final note, as we wrap up, could you just share some philosophies and ideologies that endeared you to Bibi?
Well, I don't know about endearing, but I know one of his best philosophies. One I definitely took from him.
Yeah.
I put it on my wall in the office as a reminder every day. If you follow this, you should be on the right path. Which goes, if you do great work and you do so consistently, fame and fortune will follow.
Wonderful.
That is a Dr. Show.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
As we wrap up, we'd just like you to share your birthday wishes as it turns 80.
Wow, what can I say? Daddy Show. This is your best daughter. I know you have the real daughters, but I did warn them many years ago that they have a sister. And I think Funke has quite accepted. Tunde may be struggling a little. Anyway, don't mind me. Daddy show. You're too special. I really don't know what to say to you. What do you say to a man that picks you up as a young 30-something-year-old and gives you the opportunity of a lifetime? What do you say to a man like that? What do you say to a man that not only did he do that at the time many years ago, even through the years that we worked together, our relationship transcended, that whole chairman boss relationship to just feeling like you have a father, and I don't know how else to feel beyond the fact that truly I just have a dad in you. What do you say to a man that checks up on you, to a man that that when you have any problems at all, you can actually go to him and say, hey, Daddy Show, this is a problem. I actually need your intervention. But also, in the same vein, you would also call and say, Tosin, I need so and so. And what do I say to you then? Daddy Show, anything you need, just ask. And you already know it's a done deal from my own end. It feels surreal, you turning 80, because where's the 80 in you, sir? You can walk. You outwalk everyone I know, including myself. I'm sure you still do your 5-6 days a week. I don't know. You, in terms of your intellectual capacity, your ability to remember stuff, I'm struggling at 40-something, and you're just reading out the numbers and the stories. I don't know what else to say to you. Dan, thank you. If you didn't exist, I don't know how I would have, been able to do the kind of things that I have done. You have been one of my greatest inspirations. You already know many of these things because I won't stop gushing, right? Every interview I do, you just read it and say, Tosin, not again. Because I have no one else to tell. Maybe if my dad was alive, I would say, okay, my daddy first, then Daddy Show next. But it's you, Daddy Show. It's you all the way. So I'm so excited that, you're turning 80. This is one of the greatest milestones, one of the greatest gifts, to have the gift of life. And not just life for the sake of being alive. After all, there are people alive that are just struggling to be alive. You're actually healthy, you're wealthy, you're solid and sound. You're a great man, Daddy Show. And I don't know what else to say to you than thank you. Thank you for the gift of you. Thank you for a gift that never stops giving. Thank you for everything you do, you say, your presence, your attention, your camaraderie, your inspiration. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I can't say thank you enough. And I wish you a very, very happy 80th birthday. I don't know about anyone thinking because you're 80, you're old, Sha, because I think you're going to be here for a long, long time. We're going to do 90. We're going to do 100. Maybe when you're 110. We don't want you looking like a scarecrow. So maybe when you're 110, Daddy Show. Have a happy, happy, happy birthday.
And thank you, Mrs. Tosin Adefeko. It's been wonderful having you here and sharing BB with us through your lens. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you so much if you've been watching this episode, and we hope you've been inspired by these stories. If you've been inspired, please share this content and follow us, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you in the next episode. I remain Oluwatosin Ojebisi, and this is The Movement Studio.